never smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditties. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz in the house, and that's right. And I have a two for one today. I have John Henry in the house, and I have Kim Metalio in the house, and we're going to talk about Empowered Trip. That's right, we're going to talk about youth empowerment today on Tea Time. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Get over to Spotify, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all of those good platforms, and give those a like, follow, and subscribe, and get these Tea Times out there because they do make a difference for the guest and for somebody who resonates with these topics. So let's get started with disclaimer and then a beautiful intro, and then we're going to be serving some tea. And today's tea is, we have a good strong cup of tea. We have strength, compassion, and love for Kim, courageous, determined, and vulnerability for John. That is a tea we are serving today in the house. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guest viewers and participants are responsible for using their own judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of this discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where ideals become action and conversation sparks real change in the world. Today, we welcome two guests whose work is focused on something powerful, helping young people believe in themselves and see possibilities beyond what they thought was possible. Please join me in welcoming Kim Metalio and John Henry. I'm going to get Kim to pronounce her last name, the founder of empoweredtrip.org. Empowerment Trip is a movement dedicated to inspiring and empowering youth through experiences that build confidence, leadership, and self-belief. Their work encourages young people to step outside their comfort zone, explore their potentials, and discover the strength they already carry within themselves. Kim and John believe that when young people are given encouragement, opportunity, and the right environment to grow, they begin to see the world differently. And more importantly, they begin to see themselves differently. So grab your cup and lean in. Today's Tea Time is about innovation, empowerment, and investing in the next generation of leaders. Let me get Kim and John in here. Let's spill some tea. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Miss Liz, for the intro.
Hello, thank you. By the way, my last name is spelled
Oh, you went quiet there for a second there, Kim. How do you pronounce your last name?
Oh, it's Matulo.
Matulo. I wasn't even close. See, it's a good thing I get my guests to say it. Welcome, guys.
That way.
I'm going to start off how I start off all the tea times, and that's how to get to know a little bit about you guys first before we get into the power trip. So, John, I'm going to start with you here. John, who are you as a little guy, and who are you now as a big guy?
Did you say who as I was as a little guy?
Yeah.
That's what I thought you said. It's complicated, but I'll do them with this. Like, who was I as a little guy? I was very energetic. I was always outdoors. I was very active, loved the environment, competitive. And I think part of that was, from my upbringing in my family. I mean, my father, it was very tough on us. And so, and part of what we're going to talk about today is in the book, in a way. In fact, not in a way. It actually, one of the stories is about me growing up in a very tough environment and learning some lessons about being strong as a man and how that actually created some chronic illnesses later on in life. But I didn't see it. Why would I? I was young growing up, and that was my kind of strong suit. Once I learned I had to be tough and competitive, that's who I was as a guy, as a little guy. And you know what? It's funny because I love life now because of what I went through, but I loved life then. It was so adventurous. I grew up in a very, at the time it was a very rural area. So we had a blast, all our friends, my friends were my family. We just loved each other and played together and just did all kinds of adventurous things. So yeah, that's who I was as a little guy, and who I am now. I'm laughing because it's probably even more complicated, but I think who I am now is, I think I'm well established emotionally, but still working on certain parts of it because I think it's a lifelong journey emotionally. Not only in our book describes some of the things that we learned as co-authors, including our other colleague, Dana Heiss-DePau. We learned that it is an ongoing process. And through situations in your life, you become more experienced and you're always gathering information. So who I am now is I'm an information resource person, always looking to see if there's something else that I can improve. I have my moments where you don't feel too empowered, but you can't be happy all the time. Sometimes life just throws you curveballs and you have to sit with that and you have to accept some of it and just push through it. But who I am now is I'm very action oriented. I don't consider myself a victim. Even when I was going through some chronic illnesses, I got up after a diagnosis of cancer, dusted myself off and started to do the work. Hope, was one of those things that you hear people who have cancer. Hope is not a strategy. Action is a strategy. Planning, how are you going to get better? How are you going to live your life? Because I love life and I wasn't ready to check out. So, I'm an action oriented person now. And in many ways as well, I love life even more because I was a couple of close calls, and it's so cliche, right? You're like, you come close, to check it out. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, now I appreciate this and I appreciate that. And it's like, yeah, I did before, but yeah, I don't take anything for granted anymore. I play hard. I love hard. I appreciate more. And that's who I am.
That is cool. And, it shows the teens that you guys work with, who you guys are as individuals as well, and that's why I asked that question. So, Kim, who are you as a little girl and who are you now?
Who I was very different from John's little guy. To be totally transparent, as a young child, I was very scared and lost and confused. I had grown up in dysfunction in an alcoholic home. So there was a lot of fighting and, like I said, confusion. I think, the fear had a lot to do with that and like the instability and the unpredictability that was happening in my house. But I think a big part of the fear too was just like believing all of the negative thoughts that were always going through my head. I was full of self-doubt. I didn't have tools to be confident. And I mean, I know we're going to get into the book, but like everything I'm saying right now is my why for writing this book, because, I want our youth to be empowered, as young as humanly possible to learn these tools and feel empowered, and not living a life where they're just scared all the time, and they're completely disempowered and questioning their decisions and their thoughts and not chasing their dreams or taking risks. Where today I feel I'm very different from my younger child. I have courage. I have confidence. I learned that confidence wasn't something you're born with. You have to build that over time. So I've been building it for many years. I don't believe all of the negative thoughts that run through my head. I question them now. I ask myself powerful questions when those arise. I have resilience. Actually, for my work, I lead a team. So I've become a leader over the years. And that's actually taught me a lot about not just empowering myself, but empowering my team as well. So yeah, very, very different today than who I was. And I feel like I'm just on the journey, and I'm stronger and more empowered, but I really do feel like I'll be on this journey forever, because I'm just consistently in situations where I'm, that resilience is tested, or my leadership is tested, or my empowerment is tested. But I definitely have way more tools today, like I was saying, and now I can actually walk myself through a situation and get myself through it, because I know what I have to do. Like, I kind of just have tools now that I just never had as a kid. I didn't learn any of those tools to empower myself or love myself at home. Rightfully so. My parents didn't have any of those tools either, So now that I have these tools, now I just want to teach these tools so that we can just live on a planet that, people who feel worthy, because when people walk around feeling worthy, all they spread is love, not hate. So.
Absolutely. Well, we got some questions that are coming in, so I would like to get those out to you. So whoever would like to take the dab at it first, let's get the first question out here that has come into the studio. Which NCAA team do you think has the best chance to be a Cinderella this year? I'm not even sure what NCC is.
I don't know what that means either. Do you, John?
I'm not sure what that question is about.
I guess it's is it basketball?
I'm not sure. If the person would just like to elaborate a little bit more about the conversation, and then maybe we can answer that question. Let's jump to the.
So yeah, not sure. So whoever asked the question, I'm not sure who that is. I wasn't prepared to talk about sports, although I grew up an athlete and played college football. Love sports. But, my journey has taken me in a different direction. So I still watch sports, but if it's basketball or something like that, occasionally I'll watch soccer, occasionally basketball, but sorry, can't answer that one.
We'll get to the next one. The next one is, how can teens start discovering their inner star power early?
Oh, such a good question. John, do you want?
Read our book.
Which will we be bringing up in a few seconds here.
I think that's a really good question, because Kim mentioned it in what she said earlier, and Kim, feel free to jump in here, but we did not have the tools back then. We were on our own. Once we hit the street, there was no cell phones. There was nothing. We were on our own. So whatever challenges or whatever adventures we had outside the house, we were on our own. Our parents didn't talk about it. Again, Kim, you said this before. Our parents didn't know. They didn't have the tools. So as life goes on, we start to discover our inner power and our flaws, right? And what we need work on, because I think everybody just has to, at some point take a look at some of the things and their actions in their life, and they have to start working on themselves. Well, I take that back. You don't have to, but if you want to grow and learn, it's an ongoing journey. And so what we did in the book is, from our own experiences, we put down 16 chapters in the book, and each one of them is one of the tools that we thought, it would be useful for students to actually learn to be empowered to take on anything. Because let's face it, today is a very complicated world. I was in education for over 30 years. I was a classroom teacher for many years, and then came out of the classroom and worked at the state level. I saw lots of different schools. I saw lots of different students, and if you have mental illness or you're dealing with emotional baggage, as I call it sometimes, you're not going to pass a test, or you're not going to do as well as you can. So tools like we put in our book and other tools are not just the be all end all our book. It's just a snapshot of what you can do, a quick reference to start to, when you deal with things, students that is, they can address them with confidence and have some activities that they can get to a calmer place to make decisions. So I think, I think every one of the students that I've seen, and I've seen quite a few, whether they were quiet, shy, or outgoing, they all had the potential. Some display it right up front, some don't. But I think every one of them has that inner star power in them. They just need to recognize that some of the tools, not only in our book and some of their life experiences, can bring that out. And it does take experiences, and it doesn't take, and I always say, like, kids are taking tests in school and they're judged by that. It's so much better to have an experiential learning background where they can, work with others and build things and design things and make mistakes, because school is a safe place to do that. It resembles life if it's done right. And they can build that inner star power and become more confident with that. So this book that we're talking about, Empower Trip, was really the foundation for what we thought were some of the basic tools to really get their inner star power, all jived up.
Well, I'm going to pull up the book so we can show everybody about the book that we're talking about, so everybody can see. So this is the book that we are talking about, Empowered Trip. So Kim, if you want to tell us a little bit about this book, and then I'll throw in some more questions that are coming to the studio. We got a lot of them coming in, and they're really interesting ones. So Kim, share a little bit about the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also just want to add to something John was saying about, just answering that man's question about how to teach empowerment to kids early. I know John just kind of introduced the book. It is definitely a guide to helping our youth. This one is particularly written for teens, preteens and teens, I'd say, middle age and high school age. And there are hundreds of exercises in here to help kids build confidence, to help them get to know who they are, to help them develop a relationship with themselves, and, obviously to help them love themselves and empower themselves. So there's hundreds of exercises and practices and tools that are in this book. And what's great about the book that I love is that it's not a book that's really meant to be like read from beginning to end. It's more for a teen who's, going through something in the moment to say, okay, I'm going to just flip through the index, look at the names of the chapters and figure out, okay, maybe I'm having a big decision I have to make. And maybe that young kid is, not really fully trusting himself or herself, so they can easily flip to the chapter on trusting your gut, and they can read. There's basically every single chapter has a story that will resonate or they'll relate in some way. And then it also has like a why section, like why these tools are important, why, they're important to practice. And then there's the tools, and then there's a whole bunch in each chapter. So you can literally like flip through and kind of like see what resonates with you. And if it's being used in a classroom, let's say with a teacher or a guidance counselor or a social worker, what's wonderful is those adults are getting something out of it as well. Like the tools, yes, the whole book was written for teens, but all of these exercises and practices, anybody can do at any age. Some of them maybe young kids can't do, but most of them my nephew, when he was 5, he was doing some of these tools. So it's really for all ages. I myself just did a workshop with parents where I used tools from the book to do with them, for them to physically do. And that went over really well. And I also just did it with college students. So even though the book is written for teens, these tools anybody can practice to empower themselves. And the man who asked about, just teaching kids early on, the reason why we highly recommend people buy this book, whether it's a parent, again, the parents are going to get a lot out of it too, but there's so many practices in here to learn how to, just to give a few examples, I think learning how to speak to yourself in a kind and loving way is something that if I learned that as a kid, if I learned that from my parents or an aunt or somebody who I trusted, I mean, that wasn't even on my radar. I don't think that's on a lot of people's radar, because let's face it, it's easier to be nicer naturally to people who are not you, right? It's so easy for me to be nice to everybody else. And then when it comes to me, it's like not that easy. I have to really make an effort. And all of these tools and exercises, there's definitely effort to be made, and there's practices, there's things to do and practice. But like anything, it kind of does eventually become sort of a habit if you do it consistently. And then it feels so good to do that thing. Let's say it is speaking kindly to yourself, to practice that every day. Eventually, you're going to believe the things you're saying or writing, and it's going to feel so good to do it. To not do it, it's not going to feel good. So you're just going to naturally want to do it more and more. And again, there's over hundreds of them in there. I personally love the ones where you like challenge your negative thoughts and beliefs and you flip those into positives. That really works for me well. But there's just really tons to choose from in here.
Well, that's awesome. I like that you can jump around because that's the kind of reader I like to be. I like to jump in the middle, the front, the back, so that's really cool. And you said that even adults could use this book, right? So I like that. We have a question here. What challenges do teens face mostly in finding their purpose today?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah. I think sometimes the schools in and of themselves face challenges because of the structure of the schools. Lots of schools are doing some great things, right? But they're structured in a way that not all of them are looking at a more of a contemporary way of teaching and learning. I think we're doing a better job of it, and I think we have a little ways to go. So being in that kind of structured format where you go from class to class to class, different content areas, can actually disrupt that kind of thinking. And so the challenges are that there's a lot for the kids to learn. There's a lot for them to follow. It's stressful in many ways, given what they're doing in school with extracurricular, and then they got homework, and then you got personal stuff going on and co-curricular activities. So I think those are some of the challenges. And so what happens is that when is there time to actually work on yourself, right? We didn't have time. I know looking back when I was in high school or even before that, it was a drill. You get up early, you're out on a bus stop at 6:30 in the morning, which I think is too early for most people. It is for me, but we do it anyway. And you go through the drill every day. Not saying none of this is fun or it's worth it. It is, it's good, but can we do better? Can we have time for that social emotional learning in school? And there has been some movement in that with the social emotional learning, but I still think it's more of a drive-by. I think the emotional empowerment, emotional health and improvement on yourself, self-improvement is really important, because then you can deal with the things that come your way, especially in a very complex world that we're living in, where the students are on their cell phones and they're on their media, social media, and they're getting bombarded with all kinds of information. It's a lot, and it's stressful, and they don't even know it. They might not even recognize it. And so I think that just to slow down and be mindful of what's actually going on. And again, using some of the tools, not only in our book, but some of the things that other people have done, good stuff out there. But I think it has to be implemented on a more of a regular basis and part of everyday curriculum in every school, everywhere, globally for that matter, because then everybody on the planet gets along if we're sort of on the same page in terms of being mindful of other people, feelings, their own feelings, and how to be kind and believe in themselves and love themselves, and all of those other things that are, good things to learn very early.
That's why I love to have global guests on, because it's a global pandemic, right? It's a global environment that we all have to teach each other and learn from each other, not just in Canada, not just in the United States, but around the globe. There's teens around the globe that we need to empower. We have a question here about how can teens start their own empowered trip?
I love this question so much. Well, we know that our book is one way to start an empowered trip. It's literally a trip. But if for some reason, somebody can't buy the book or anything like that, what I did, before I even wrote this book, when I was starting on my own journey to learn how to love myself, I honestly went down a rabbit hole of like okay, self-love, what is that? How do I do that? How do I get that? I know I need it so badly. So I just went on a rabbit hole of like reading inspiring books, watching inspiring videos on YouTube, anything and everything, vlogs, blogs, you name it. I just went down like my own little journey. And then that I got a whole bunch of tools. And I mean, nowadays you can just Google tools for self-love, self-help, empowerment, and you'll probably get an array of things. But back then, I mean, that was, not to age myself, but that was back when, like, you know, I remember like Google being a big deal. So I just Googled whatever I could and found whatever I could. And then I was using some tools that I found through Google, but then over time I started to realize, like, I kind of started to create my own. I'll give you an example. Part of my journey, I have a chronic skin disease called psoriasis, which I'm sure a lot of people listening are familiar with. And it was really imperative that I learn how to love myself with or without the spots on my skin. So something as simple as talking lovingly to my skin directly and saying very empowering, positive things. There is so much power in your words and the attention you put to your words and your thoughts. And so I'm a big believer that we get what we expect. And giving my skin that love every single day. I had to do it. You know, I made myself do it for at least a minute a day, 2 minutes a day. And I have to tell you, when I watched my skin heal before my very eyes, granted, I was also eating healthy. I was also doing other things to reduce my stress. It wasn't just this one thing, but it made such an impact. So then I started to create other exercises and other little practices that I found really worked for me. So I just encourage anybody, you know, our book is a great place to start, but you can Google things, you can create your own, you know, you can ask yourself, what is going to make me feel good today? What's going to bring me joy? Is it going for a walk? Okay, then maybe a walk becomes your non-negotiable, right? You're one with nature, gives you a chance to reflect, gives you a chance to recharge your batteries. Maybe that's what you need. And I love one of the chapters in our book is about getting to know yourself. And it's so important because I remember when I was young, I had no idea what I needed or what was good for me, what served me, what patterns didn't serve me, no clue. So what's great is there's tons of exercises as well for like just getting to know yourself so that you can decide, okay, what does serve me and what doesn't? What do I need more of in my life? How am I exhausting my resource of energy? Like, am I giving it away to people that I really shouldn't be? It's just really being willing to take the time to go inside. And so again, you could create your own, or you can Google, read our book. There's so many ways.
Yeah, I think if I could just add to that quickly, Miss Liz, I think there's a critical juncture that students go through if they're starting to struggle with empowerment, is because some students will actually go down that self-medicating pathway just to cover it up. They'll push their feelings under the carpet. They might do drugs. They might start smoking. They might do other bad habits. And that's the rabbit hole that they don't want to go through. But the resources are out there. And Kim, you definitely hit it on the head. There's so much out there on YouTube and about empowerment and about other things that we are talking about, not only in our book, but just everywhere. The resources of the school, they have counselors, they have right there. I mean, there's so much. I think it's important for the students to, again, find out where they can get that motivation from. So I think it's, and sometimes students just aren't motivated enough, but they have to be self-motivated or inspired. And sometimes life happenings or events change their course of action. Like you always take the story about, you know, and I'm speaking from a man's perspective. I grew up tough. I had to be this strong man, and I can't lose a fight. Or, you know, when we were rumbling on the streets and we were kids, right? Well, for what if I did? Does that mean I'm not a man? So you start to think about that. So if that's the trigger, is I have to be a certain way as a person. I have to be looked at a certain way instead of just being an individual and, you know, have this individualism. Be your own person, be authentic with whatever you do without worrying about what other people think, right? Dance like nobody's watching, right? And just don't be afraid to go on the dance floor and dance, right? And by yourself, just because you like music, go and do it. I think the kids need some motivation that way and realize that, and being in that circle of other students and an environment in a school. And I'm using the school as an environment because some schools are very inviting for them to actually improve and they accept others the way they are, very accepting spaces. And hopefully that's the way schools are, but that's not always the case. They have to find, I think, their own inspiration, but they can get it in a million different ways.
What I really like about this teamwork is that you have the male version and you have the female version. So you're getting all the teens, you know, so the boys can turn to John and the girls can turn to Kim, you know, or vice versa, because sometimes boys are easier to talk to women and girls are easier to talk to men. So what experience have you guys experienced from the way that the book is written? Because you have both perspectives in the book, correct?
Yeah, well, let me, what you just said, Miss Liz, and let me just back up a little bit about my history in terms of the genesis of the book from my perspective. So in 2015, well, I can even go back further than that. Being on this treadmill that I was on, working, you know, having a lot of stress in my life, you know, putting in a lot of hours, thinking that, again, and I'll say it from the man's perspective, I had children that I was taking care of, you know, a family, and I had to be that strong, tough man. Well, a couple of years after being stressed in 2000, that was before that, say 2012, 13, 14, by 2015, the end of the year, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I, you know, I was like lost. Okay, here's where I had no tools or very little, even though we just explained that we can still get the tools on the internet. But when you're emotionally compromised, you're not really looking for stuff at first. You're just figuring, oh my God, I have a life-threatening illness here, trying to find out what you can do. Well, what I realized is that I found out that being a man and being in that I have to be strong was actually hurting me. It wasn't doing me justice at all to heal. I needed to heal from cancer, not fight cancer. So even when I hear people talk about, I have to fight cancer, fighting in the act of fighting is stressful in and of itself. So I always suggest that I'm healing from cancer. I'm healing. I'm learning all I can. And so, again, I mentioned in the beginning about action, right? So what I did, because of the way that I am, is I started to do my homework, and I found the Radical Remission Project by Dr. Kelly Turner, who wrote a book called Surviving Cancer Against All Odds, and she wrote a second book called Radical Hope. I started taking her classes. I became a coach. I became an instructor. And in that book, there was 10 healing factors that all of the people who survived cancer against all odds, they all lived because they did these 10 healing factors. Well, of course, I did them and I lived. Not only did I live, but I mean, I think that I'm thriving right now, you know, compared to where I may have been. I don't know where I would have been if I didn't find that resource that we're talking about, you know, the resources. So for me, realizing that men do things differently than women emotionally, but I had to be vulnerable to heal from cancer and some of the other fallout things that came after with cancer, you know. And then I retired from my profession a few years ago. Then I lost that. And then so emotionally, we're always trying to just stay stable and understand what's going on around our world. But as a man, you know, thinking that I had to be strong all the time was really not the way to deal with things. And I don't do that anymore. I shouldn't say I don't do that anymore. I do it less because, let's face it, unwinding all of that, I have to be this tough, strong guy wasn't easy to do, but I was now aware of it. And I think the first step towards healing and towards learning and empowerment is awareness.
And I just want to add to that, you know, here he's working with me, and there was 3 of us, but with me, I'm like really vulnerable on the outside. I think I just get it naturally from my dad, who wears his heart on his sleeve. But there you have me, this like very vulnerable being, and I express it fully. And here I am working with John, and he's going through this whole long, really intense journey to like learning his vulnerable side. So John and I, even before writing the book, John and I had many talks about this book and about just working together in some way to impact kids. And, you know, there was always this idea of changing, you know, making self-love homework in schools. And him and I have been talking for a long time. So I just feel like our energies like really matched each other. He was like very logical and practical and just had a way of articulating things that like were so clear to me, and like it was almost like he helped ground me and I helped make him fly, like, if that makes sense.
I like that, ground and fly.
You got to have a place to take off from, right? And you need a solid foundation to do it.
Absolutely. We have a question here for you guys. How can schools better support holistic well-being? And this is something that we don't talk about a lot in the schools, that I hope we can open this door for all the schools out there that are listening.
Yeah.
Well,
And
go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
no, I was actually just about to say, John, probably he's 100% the best person to speak to this question because of all of his education experience. I just want to start it off with something. I just happened to volunteer recently at a middle school, and I met the social worker, and we were going around. It was like a sort of like a career day kind of thing. And we were going around talking to the kids, and I was showing them this book, and I was talking to them about the tools inside, et cetera, et cetera. And this particular school has something called a calming room, and they have this social worker, actually a team of them, who have this really, really beautiful, very zen room to, you know, help the kids self-regulate. And so she ended up asking me if she could keep the book, because she's like, I am always looking for tools to do with these kids. She's like, we have a bunch that we use here, but we're always looking for more. So I look forward to, I gave her the book, and I look forward to hearing her feedback if how our tools worked with those kids. But it just got me, I'll let you talk, John. I just got me thinking about the calming room. And I think that's wonderful when you give a kids a place to go that's not just an office, because a lot of times, like my high school, for example, if you wanted to go to the social worker or guidance counselor's office, everybody would see you go in there. You're passing classrooms. It's like obvious when you have an issue and you want to go talk to someone, versus like a calming room that's totally separate from everything, and you don't have to worry what other kids will think. I just loved that, and I just wanted to share that. Go ahead, John.
No, thanks, Kim, for sharing that. That's actually important because that could potentially be a tool for other schools to use. So I do have a lot of experience in this particular area because I spent 30 years in education. I'm actually serving on a board of education right now in my local town. I served at the state level at New Jersey School Boards Association, where we were the training association for school board members. And the reason why I bring that up is because if you want change in a school, the board members in the school has to set policy to do it. And once it's written in policy, it has to be carried out by the superintendent, right? It's nice to have all the educators on board, but I think one of the stumbling blocks is, again, I mentioned it earlier about, you know, we're teaching to the test a lot of times, and there's a lot of things that the teachers have to cover in order for the students to be able to, you know, pass the test. And then what's left over at the end of the day is very little. You might have a calming room, Kim, if you're lucky, right? You might have some social emotional learning techniques that the kids will do if you're lucky, but most will focus on the content. And if the kids are emotionally compromised, they're not really spending a lot of time on the content, or they won't get the content and they might not pass the test. So I think to answer the question, and it was a very good one, is I think the state levels at all, you know, not just I'm talking about here because that's where I am in New Jersey, they have to be supportive of it. They have to support it and actually include them more in the standards for starters, you know, and then the schools themselves on local control. That's how it's done here in New Jersey. Every local board of ed has their own thing that they can do. But the Department of Ed has the standards, but the schools can do it any way that they want. So they do have choices. But the standards have to be covered, but the board can set policy. And they can actually write a policy in it and say that, you know, there are a certain amount of time each day or week or month, whatever, that can be dedicated towards self-empowerment, self-improvement, and all the tools, again, not only in our book, but others that they have, social emotional learning techniques. They have to go in to an everyday plan. Not only that, is the PTA is actually very important. I have seen some incredible parent teachers associations work very closely with staff members and administrators to support the students' learning, to raise funds, to help support events. Just a month ago, the local PTA here had a health and wellness forum where they had like 35 vendors come in and talk about health and wellness and what students can do. It was all done by the PTA. The school just housed it for them, but there was like 175 people that came in, parents, guests, students, their younger siblings. They all came in and learned a great deal that night. But it was, again, I call them drive-by education. We can't afford to have drive-by education anymore in this. This has to be something that has to be implemented in every school, done every day when needed, not wait until, somebody loses it completely or fails tests because they're emotionally compromised. I mean, we can get ahead of this, but we have to put it into everyday policy, everyday practice in our schools. I'm just not seeing that enough, or at least to my liking. Of course, I'm biased to that because I think the emotional health and empowerment is extremely important. I just wish I would see it more.
I think the problem, John, is we're not having these conversations, right? We're not having these open heart conversations of how we should change the policies of the school systems. They're so stuck in the old ways that they're not seeing the difference in today's world, where the kids are overstimulated with so much that their mental capacity is way different than when we were in school,
That's true. But I do see some movement. Again, a lot of schools in New Jersey now are banning cell phone use during the day. Okay, that's great. Some parents are freaking out because they want to get in touch with their kids, right? Well, there's ways that the school can get in touch with their children without having their cell phone be on their desk or being a big distraction. So I think the schools are actually doing a better job of moving the needle, and like doing policies like banning cell phones, things like that from the school classrooms is a good thing, unless it's absolutely necessary for learning and content knowledge, right? And then there's exceptions to the rule. So, but integrating this into policy and into practice, training teachers is another one. Like you can have professional development. You can have learning pods, right? Where teachers are learning together and collaboratively. Maybe they're doing some self-improvement, self-love, and empowerment, where it's not just, hey, here's a book, let's throw it on a kid's desk and hope it sticks. It doesn't work that way. I think the teachers and the administrators, even the board members can get trained in this, because then they fully understand it. It's just not a drive-by thing. It has to be embedded and through in the entire culture of the school. And then you have real change.
Absolutely. We have a question here for both of you. What's one key lesson from your book everyone should know?
I'm loving these questions.
I have the best viewers out there.
Well, kudos to the viewers out there. You're coming up with some really good questions. That one might be a little bit difficult to learn or to answer, because there's so many in the book. That, Kim, what would your answer be on this one?
I was going to say, I have my favorites. I think what John said is right. There are a lot of really wonderful lessons to be learned from this book about, loving yourself, getting to know yourself, healthy engagement with other people, like looking for the good in other people. There's just so much. But my personal favorite, well, John, I know what your favorite is. Yours is the me date. But I'll just speak for myself at first, and then John could elaborate on that. But
that one, I didn't like the name. I liked the activity. I didn't like the me date. Now, again, it was a guy thing, right? It was like, I'm going on a me date. Okay.
But, and I'm sorry, I'll get to my point. My most favorite one, my most favorite lesson ever, something that I learned years ago that I just feel like is the most powerful thing on this planet for people to learn. If they can learn it young, man, oh man, will it change their life. It's in the book, it's called Meaning Making Monsters. And basically what it is it's, we all have these stories, these, our mind is trying to make sense of our world, right? Like it's trying to understand what's going on in our experiences every single day, all day long. So I'll call them events. We have events that happen all day long. We could have a phone call. We're on this podcast right now. We could work, we could, take a nap, we could talk to a friend. I mean, all day long, we're experiencing things, and our minds are just trying to understand the experience. And so our mind is assigning meaning to that experience. And the thing is whether it's positive or negative, it's going to shape your reality. It's going to influence how you show up, your decisions, your risk the risks you take. It's gonna impact how you feel, everything. So those meanings can empower us, or they can completely disempower us. If there's a meaning that's like, that happened to me, just as an example. I wrote something once that somebody didn't approve of. Now, she never really said, I don't approve of it, but it was kind of all in her physical demeanor. I could tell that she didn't approve of what I wrote. And I left her office in tears. And I remember just feeling completely like my mind made it mean from that interaction that I was stupid, that I was a bad writer, that I wasn't enough, that she thought I was whatever. My mind went on a tangent with me. And when I actually took a moment to stop and pause and say, okay, what is my mind making it mean right now? Because I am so upset. I'm just going to melt over here. What is my mind making it mean? And then I sit and I think of what it's making it mean, all these things that I just listed. And then I just, again, take a moment and ask myself, are any of those things actually true? Well, in that situation, no. I know I'm not stupid. I know I'm not a bad writer. I know that she loves me and approves of me. Maybe she didn't like the angle I did with the article or whatever, right? But she never once said those things. And I know that they're not true. But so if I believed what my mind made those things mean, if I believed any of those limiting beliefs or thoughts, I would probably have never have written again another day of my life. I probably would never have written again. And so it just shows you how, is that not the most powerful thing, that if we believe what our minds tell us, we could literally never chase our dreams in life. We can never go talk to that person or make that phone call or attempt to go audition for something, whatever it is for you. It's incredible how powerful that is.
Absolutely. So John, you want to tell us about this me date?
Just in title, it was the only thing in the book that the title, a me date, but it's exactly what it is. It's like, go and do something, try something new. Don't, be stagnant. Go and experiment with life and go out there and do something new. Go on we called it a date, a me date, because it's only you, not including anybody else. You can, take it the second level of that would be, hey, I found something new and really cool to do, and then ask some friends to do it collaboratively with you. So yeah, there's a lot of things in the book. We should probably go over what the chapters are, and I may want to read that in a second, but one of my favorite chapters is Let It Go. And the quote at the beginning of this chapter, by the way, we start out every chapter with a quote and an affirmation, and then we end it with a quote and an affirmation. So, but this particular quote is, time doesn't heal emotional pain. You need to learn how to let go. And for me, that was so true, because if I was holding on things, and perhaps they segue into the other chapters, like believe in yourself. If you believe something, or meaning making machines, right? If you think something is true, you're not going to let it go. You're just going to hold on to it. And people don't heal until they let go of the emotional pain that they're struggling with. And that's really hard to do. And that's why tools, the internet, this book, other resources are really important. And even in the Radical Remission Project, Dr. Kelly Turner talks about people did not heal their cancer until they released their suppressed emotions, because they were holding on to it. And it was the one toxic thing that kept their bodies from healing. Really, really important for everybody to get that. And that's why let go actually made it into the book, because you really can hold on to that stuff. It is toxic to your body, to your mind. You start making stories up, and you can really spiral out of control. But I just want to talk about how the book is framed in the chapters. There's 16 chapters, and I'll read them really quickly because I know we're running out of little time here. And so the part one is all about you. Know yourself, love yourself, believe in yourself, trust your gut. Big one, right? We're losing our intuition. We don't trust the gut. We trust the internet. We trust all this other outside external resources, but we're losing our sense of trusting what we feel. Our second brain, so to speak, is our gut. We get this feeling something isn't right. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not, but we ignore it because the other things look all shiny and new, right? Part two is cultivating positive qualities. Have courage. Let it go. Be positive. It's okay to play. Playing. Have fun. Enjoy the things that you're doing. Stellar serenity. Part three is finding harmony with others. Forgiveness. Big one. big one. Even if you don't hear it from the person, just forgive them for whatever they did to you or you thought they did to you. See others' perspectives, understanding the truth. Look for the good in others. Part 4, healthy engagement with the world. Mindful meaning making. That was what Kim was just talking about. Eat for wellness. And then 16, the last chapter, sustain the planet. If you don't sustain your environment and you're living in an unhealthy environment, then it may not last too long. Eat for wellness is an important one because the kids don't, how many people know how to really eat well? Because if you're not nourishing your body, everything else starts to fall apart. So we didn't put a lot in there in terms of technical data with the Eat for Wellness because nutrition is a very complicated subject.
Yeah.
Everybody's chemistry is a little bit different. Some foods might not be good for others and might be good for someone else, but not for you. So, but we hit on the topics that we thought that would at least start their journey of their inner star power, getting their inner star power.
Yeah, and I just want to add that the entire book was nothing's written to fix anyone. It's written to help them trust who they already are and for them to know that they're not broken,
We have a question here that I want to get out because, Kim, you talked about this a lot, self-love. What role does self-love play in youth empowerment?
I mean, a huge one, a huge one. When I was a child, self-love wasn't on my radar at all. I'm sure it wasn't on many people's radars growing up. I know I'm not the only person who was raised in a dysfunctional family. It's so huge because, first of all, it's almost like just so much more. Like, I want every kid walking around with confidence. I want them all to have their own foundation of self-worth. I said earlier, like, I want every kid and every adult, every person on this planet to be walking around feeling worthy, because it really will change how we act in society and how we act in our own communities. But self-love is everything. I really think it's the way, especially when they're young, it's the way to really start empowering yourself. Okay, just breaking it down, like self-love. What is that? Okay, it's to love myself. Okay, it's super simple. But the ways to do it and the little exercises and tools and things that, not just in our book, but that are out there, they are so important to learn when you're young, because I don't want anybody to all of a sudden, and that's what me and John, we come from a place of like, we grew up and then we realized all of our issues. We realized, me personally, I have a lot of survival traits that I learned from attending adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional family support group. And those survival traits, all of those behaviors, none of them really served me. People pleasing, feeling responsible for the world, not, putting others before myself, feeling guilty, and then you have conditioning as well as a woman. So like, there's just all these things that play. And the thing that changed me the most at 35 years old, when I really first started to delve into my self-love practice for myself, it was like the first time ever where I like put myself first. I made self-love like my full-time job, because I knew that I was so, like, you would never know it looking at me from the outside, but I was really unhappy. And every time I was happy, it was almost like a roller coaster. Like, I was happy and then I was back to being not so happy, and then happy, and then not, I'd have these fleeting moments. And I knew that it had nothing to do with what I was experiencing on the outside. It was everything that I was experiencing on the inside. I didn't trust myself. I was not empowered. I did not know how to empower myself. And it all starts with self-love. And self-love today, I feel like it's such a woo-woo word. Like, people just kind of roll their eyes at it now, where I just think it's the most important thing in the whole world. I think that it should be curriculum in school. I think self-love needs to be homework, because not every kid is going to learn different techniques on how to love themselves at home. So at least that the kids are going to school. They're all going to school, hopefully. So, at least that's a place where that something could be taught to help them believe in themselves. But through self-love, there's getting more resilient, there's resilience, there's emotional learning, there's emotional wellness, there's just self-regulation. Like, you really can't regulate yourself without caring enough to do some of these tools that will help you show yourself care. Like at the end of the day, that's kind of all you're doing. You're putting yourself first and saying, okay, what can I do right now that where I can care about myself enough to get better or to feel better? It all starts with self-love. And then as you start to practice those tools and techniques, whatever it is for you, it could be going for a walk. It could be anything. It could be maybe to love yourself in that moment. Maybe you do need to talk to a friend, and just talking is medicine, right? So it could be anything, but as long as you practice whatever that is for you, that works for you, that's the only way to empowerment. And that's the only way to worthiness, in my opinion. John, what do you think?
No, I agree. And I think, loving yourself also extends once you start to pick up some of the tools, and even if it's small little tidbits of information, or starting to move the needle in loving yourself and appreciating yourself, and even liking who you are, or some of the things like, well, let's not even go love yourself first. Let's go, hey, I like myself for these things, and identifying what they really are. And then you can start to love others or like others, and start to appreciate and see, we have seeing other people's perspective, it's important. You don't have to hate all the time because somebody's different. They're probably not much different than you are. Going through similar experiences just, shows up differently, or they show up differently. But yeah, I think, moving the needle, again, I always use the term moving the needle little by little, in getting the students and the staff in schools to really understand that emotional well-being is really, really important. I would venture to say just as important as the curriculum and the content standards that they're learning, because again, I said it earlier, if they're emotionally compromised, if they're struggling with some stuff they can't deal with, I don't really think they're going to pass tests too readily, unless you're a person like me who was throwing myself into those other things to avoid some emotional trauma. And I realized that in the last 10 years is that the reason why I was so busy is because I wasn't dealing with it. I didn't even know it. I was just going, and I was in the treadmill, just going and going and going. Or as I call it, the hamster wheel, just spinning every now and then, taking a little sip of the water, the little tube that's in there in the cage, but I just kept going and going and going, and didn't realize that there was all this stuff going on behind the scenes until I got sick. And then I realized that all this other things were out there. And then I said, oh, and in order for me to get better, these are the things that I should be learning about. But it took a chronic illness. And we are suggesting in our book, and what we talk about is, don't wait until something happens. Why wait? Like, you don't do that with a car, right?
Yeah.
Change your brakes and you get your oil changed. You don't wait until you break down. Well, some people do. Cars are breaking down the road. But why? Because they didn't maintain it. You have to maintain your emotions. You find out how things work. You find out how you work. And you can also spread it to other people and share it. And I'm hoping that schools embrace empowerment and set up these, work groups or, collaborative learning spaces where the students can actually share and talk, and so that they can understand each other, and emotions become second nature in the school instead of something you hide and shove under the carpet. So, I'm just hoping for, not only in our book, but I'm hoping, for the entire planet, just to, let's understand each other. Let's grow together. Let's learn together. We have many, many differences all over the place in this world, but at the end of the day, we're just people just trying to make it through this world. And we all have emotional stuff that we're dealing with. And sometimes we need some help and support. And it starts with you, your inner star power, and also others, right, who can help and go through your journey together.
And
so go ahead, Kim.
No, I was just going to add one little thing that, John, you said something really important, and that's that, let's not wait until there's, a mental health crisis. Let's not wait until somebody commits suicide. Let's not wait. We would love for this to just be mainstream. Like, this is just something talked about in schools. This is something taught in schools. This isn't something that, they bring in on the side for 5 minutes a day in the morning before class starts. Like, it becomes, a more dominating piece to education. That's what we would really love to see. Like, it just be more normalized.
So I want to wrap it up with you guys. What is your final message to all the listeners tonight? And if one of you guys want to just spell out the website for all the audio listeners.
Yeah. Last part, all the something for the listeners. I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, Miss Liz.
Oh, did you cut off for a second? Final message, John, for all the listeners
Oh,
out there.
final message. Okay.
My final message, John, if you don't mind, I'll just go
No, of
first.
course not.
My final message is that I just want everyone listening, whether they're kids or adults, or just to remind you, because you may have forgotten or you might not know that you have the power to create a life that you're proud of. Like we all have the power inside of us. A lot of times it doesn't feel that way. A lot of times we feel like we're a bit at the mercy of our circumstances and situations and culture and all the things, but inside we have that inner star power to really create and design a life that we want. It all starts with and ends with us. So that's my final message. And then I see the Empower Trip website posted up there, which is great because our book is on Amazon, but they can absolutely go to Empower Trip's website to order the book, or even just there's a ton of resources there. I know John and our other his partner Dana, they're also doing a lot of different school challenges and really interesting stuff, so they can read more about that stuff there as well. But yeah, John, go ahead.
No, and speaking of Dana, I have to really thank Dana, because she did, she was a vital part of this book as well.
Mm-hmm.
Co-author, did the graphics. We also have a workbook, which she did a lot of the graphics in the workbook. So Dana is amazing. And she was a former superintendent of schools, so she has an educational background. And so all three of us worked really well together to get this out the door. I think my final message was that, Kim, and I like the way you said it. It was actually some of the things I might have said, but it does start with you. And I think it does take courage to take that step to learn, but the resources are out there. And just don't be afraid to do it. Find help, find a place that you could be comfortable with your emotions, talk to other people. The resources are right in the school. They're right in the library, for that matter. They're right online on your phone. Your phone is if they are, when they're using their phone, if they're not banned from school, go and find some resources, look up what's going on, and be aware of your circumstances. And also, don't hang. I tell my son this all the time. It's hard to soar. It's hard to soar with eagles when you hang with turkeys, right? And there was actually a NASA poster about that, and it was something along the same lines, where the astronauts were, your altitude is determined by your attitude. In other words, you can't be an astronaut for those who aspire to be one, and not many people are, because it's very challenging to do. But that doesn't mean it's out of reach. It just means that if you say no, you can't do it, and you believe that, you won't. So I think believing in yourself, believing that you can achieve no matter what it is. There's no limits. The sky is no longer the limit. It's past that. It's just wherever the universe, there's no limits on the universe. Just go for it. But in order to get there, you have to be in a good place emotionally. And the tools in this book, and like we said, and resources out there that are flying around in Google and internet, they're all there. I wouldn't say there's no excuse. And sometimes we need help, all of us. No one is spared from wanting help or needing help every now and then, and just don't be afraid to ask for it.
Well, I really want to thank you guys. This was truly an amazing conversation, really inspiring. Kim and John, thank you for sharing the vision behind Empowerment Trip and for reminding us how important it is to invest in young people, not just for the words, but for the real opportunities that help them grow into confident leaders. This afternoon, we were reminded that empowerment begins when someone believes in you, encourages your ideals, and gives you the chance to step forward. Programs like Empower Trip help young people recognize their voice, their creativity, and their ability to shape the future. To everyone listening, here is something to carry with you after this tea time. Sometimes the greatest impact we can make is simply believing in someone before they believe in themselves. Until our next cup, share. Keep supporting the next generation, keep encouraging curiosity, and keep pouring confidence into the future. And I want to thank everybody, and I'll be back at 7 p.m. with the next tea time. And we'll do this all over again.
Thank you, Liz, for having us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So grateful.